Welcome to Philosophy 148, Reason and Argument, at the University of Kansas. My name is John Simmons, and I'm delighted that you've decided to enroll for this class. The central goal of this course is to help you to become a better thinker. So if you're willing to work hard, I'm confident that this course will help you to achieve excellence in reasoning and decision-making. So in addition to providing a guide to good critical thinking, the skills that a course like this will provide are directly transferable to other areas of formal inquiry, so that in fields like mathematics and computer science, you should find that they're a great deal easier. Once you get the hang of formal reasoning and once you get a better understanding of how proof and proofs work. So the study of logic offers an easy way to see the basic types of formal reasoning in their clearest form. So as such, this course will provide you with the foundational skills necessary for engaging with some of the most interesting developments in contemporary computer science, contemporary philosophy, foundations of mathematics, and many other disciplines. So my hope is that this course can open the door to a whole world of really thrilling intellectual adventures for you. So while the skills you'll learn in this course will be useful for the rest of your university education, the real point of a course like this goes well beyond helping you to do better in your math or your computer science courses, or helping you to write better argumentative essays. So the real point of this class is to help you to become a more effective thinker and a better decision maker. So the ability to think critically then really is valuable in itself, and it's widely acknowledged as being the most important learning outcome in higher education. And for this reason, critical thinking is listed as the first learning outcome in our first goal in the new KU core curriculum. So the KU community has recognized that if our graduates don't understand the difference between a good and a bad argument, and don't have the ability to reason carefully about their decisions, then we've failed them. We failed to equip them with the basic intellectual capacity to serve as good citizens in a democratic society. So almost every college course, of course, will involve the application of critical thinking skills. But what we're doing in this class is, well, we're just hoping to help you learn 6 fundamental skills that are widely associated with critical thinking. So as such, this is going to be the best course in the catalog for anyone hoping to become a good critical thinker. So a student who's successfully completed this course should be able to do the following 6 things. You should be able to identify premises and conclusions and inferences. You should be able to detect fallacious reasoning, bad reasoning. You should be able to evaluate the reliability of evidence. You should be able then to create your own argument and to demonstrate the validity of an argument. And finally, you should be able to recognize your own cognitive biases and limitations. So you could add to that list, but we believe that these are the fundamental skills that must be covered in a critical thinking course. So by studying logic, then, we sharpen our ability to tell the difference between good and bad ways of thinking, speaking, and writing. And logic helps us to develop a range of cognitive skills and encourages us to approach problems and decision-making in a deliberate and careful manner. So in order to improve as thinkers, we first have to recognize the limits of our ordinary ways of thinking and deciding. So we have to recognize that we often fail to reason well, and we regularly make bad decisions. So we have to be ready to recognize that we're not perfect, and that's a requirement really if we hope to improve. Now for some of us, it's difficult to recognize that we may not be very effective thinkers, and breaking bad cognitive habits is really difficult. But it's going to be impossible to do so if we don't recognize that we have these bad habits. So our study of logic then will introduce powerful techniques of formal reasoning in order to supplement and correct our innate common sense abilities. So when we think of common sense, we understand it as the kind of basic intelligence that a typical adult human can be assumed to possess in the 21st century. So it's a non-scientific term, common sense. It points to the kind of low-level intelligence and background knowledge that you need, or that a person needs, in order to navigate the practical challenges of an ordinary day. So very young children are thought to lack common sense and are encouraged to develop it as they mature. And common sense is sometimes contrasted with the kinds of intelligence that you develop at university or through formal study or in highly theoretical areas of intellectual life. So common sense is a vague notion that encompasses a broad repertoire of cognitive abilities and allow us to make decisions, to think through problems, to detect obviously misleading or confused ways of talking and thinking, etc. And these basic abilities, that's what we're going to build on. But they have significant limits. They're obviously an indispensable starting point for developing our skill as thinkers and cultivating our ability to make well-informed decisions, but it's just a starting point. And the study of logic and critical thinking serves to educate our common sense ability to detect, misleading or confused or self-defeating ways of reasoning. So given basic common sense, most of us can recognize obviously faulty reasoning when we encounter it. But in this course, we're hoping to move beyond our common sense ability to recognize the obvious mistakes, to understand the general characteristics of failures of reasoning more generally. So we can advance beyond common sense then by learning how to reason formally. And formal reasoning lies at the heart of some of the greatest intellectual achievements in 20th century mathematics, science, and philosophy. And by studying logic then, by studying other formal disciplines too, we can build on and correct some aspects of common sense. So developing our ability to practice good reasoning, like the cultivation of any other skill, takes practice and it takes effort. And our goal then is to allow our formal understanding of good and bad patterns of reasoning to inform our daily practices as decision makers and thinkers. So our first goal will be to recognize the patterns that mark excellent and defective reasoning. So through our study of logic, we'll develop the ability to recognize and evaluate these patterns in texts and conversations. So discovering patterns then and understanding their characteristics is the heart of formal reasoning. So it's true that basic common sense abilities serve us pretty well, and they've served our species very well over the course of our early evolutionary history. But the complexity and novelty of the decisions we face in modern life easily overwhelm our capacity to think clearly and to make decisions that align with our interests and our preferences. So our ancestors weren't, our hunter-gatherer ancestors, let's say, weren't faced with the challenge of interpreting the results of medical tests, or, they weren't subject to manipulation by sophisticated commercial or political advertising. They weren't required to evaluate financial risks and rewards, the kinds that are associated with debt or insurance or retirement planning, etc. So our ancestors weren't faced with the kinds of also with complex ethical and political challenges like climate change or the distribution of healthcare or the regulation of the financial industry and so on. So developing our appreciation for formal reasoning and recognizing that our innate abilities are really limited in very significant ways, that's going to help us to successfully navigate these complex modern challenges. So we'll study carefully where our reasoning tends to go wrong, and we'll learn techniques for improving. We'll learn how to determine whether an argument is a good argument or a bad argument, and how to evaluate evidence. We'll learn some basic probability theory, sentential logic, and a little bit of modern first-order logic in this course, so that by the end of the class, you'll be able to prove things, and you'll be able to evaluate proofs for yourself. Okay, so in addition to the lectures and the exercises, the videos, and the other materials, this class is going to have weekly virtual office hours and the opportunity for online discussion with your peers, with other students. So regular participation in all components of the class will be important to your success. Okay, so your first order of business then will be to familiarize yourself with the technical practicalities of an online class, and we'll include a short video tutorial that'll guide you through the basic mechanics of the class. You should also study the syllabus carefully and then go ahead and take a brief syllabus quiz and also a pretest. So the syllabus should answer most of your technical and practical questions, I hope. Okay, so a quick word of caution. So you should be aware that for most students, taking an online class is considerably more challenging, much more difficult than taking a regular face-to-face class. So an online class certainly offers more flexibility, and maybe it's your only practical option for any number of reasons. But it generally requires much more discipline and attention than you might expect if you haven't done this before. It'll be important for you to watch all the videos more than once. Be ready to rewind, pause, repeat the material to make sure that you understand what's going on. Please read the texts carefully. Go slowly. Avoid rushing through the assignments. Take your time with the quizzes. And let me emphasize that taking a course online is far more difficult for most students, and generally speaking, students will find the course far more challenging than they would in a face-to-face setting. So, with that said, I'd like to thank you for deciding to take the course and welcome you again to Reason and Argument. So now let's get started. Thanks.